Nice to see you all here. We have exactly the perfect amount of people today. We weren't sure whether we were going to have 200 people or 50 people, so we have exactly the right number. Perfect. Thank you all for coming today for this ceremony of ordination in the Zen school. As far as we know from anthropological, archaeological, historical notes, since the beginning of human civilization, there have always been people who specialized in the spiritual dimension. And sometimes that relationship, depending upon how they regarded the divine, had different functions. But there have always been people in every single culture who were devoted to the spiritual dimension. And the spiritual dimension sometimes means that which is hidden, because most of what is going on right now is hidden from us. You know, we have these interesting things, but the whole genesis of it, everything that's connected with it, everything that surrounds it, everything that leads into it is all hidden. And yet, here it is. So from earliest time, there have been people who have devoted themselves to that mystery. And that mystery of relationship between a community, an individual, and the world, and that which transcends the world. This ceremony is a ceremony of generosity. It's a ceremony of taking a step that says publicly, my life, the center of my life, is no longer I, me, my, what will I get, what will I do, where will I go, but rather it begins to turn the center of our life to the benefit and helping others. To turn the life from a life of how do I build my particular life into how do I support everyone. And that is really a wonderful thing to actually have people who are willing to step forward and in front of witnesses, in front of the community, to say, I'm changing the emphasis of my life. I'm changing the direction of my life. And what happens is, if we're aiming an arrow or a gun or something at a target, and we move it just 2 degrees, the outcome is very different. And so in a way, this ceremony is moving that 2, maybe 3, maybe 10 degrees, and the outcome is very different. In this particular tradition, we all have the same fundamental aspiration. I think all human beings do. The aspiration to be liberated, the aspiration to find freedom, the aspiration for meaning, the aspiration to know what is true, the aspiration for love and for kindness that's found in our hearts. And hopefully we can begin to see that and express that in the world. And I hope, I'm confident, that each person in the room has chosen what they feel is the very best and most skillful way to achieve their ends, to work in alignment with their heart's desire, their aspiration. This particular ceremony is about people who make a choice to pursue their heart's aspiration, to make a choice to pursue the deep calling of the heart in this manner, the manner of community, the matter of ongoing practice, the matter of constant investigation into the nature of things, the matter of constantly supporting others. Because our own happiness is so fleeting that it really is not so important. But when we have turned our life in a different way through the power of generosity and intention so that everybody benefits, then we, of course, grow as well. ceremony of generosity, a ceremony of intention, a ceremony of clarity. Because this is not something that people just come forward and say, ordain me, and we say, yeah, that's great, come. You know? There is no benefit from this vantage point in trying to cultivate agreement. You know, get enough people to agree with us we think we're right. That isn't the way it works. You know? But rather, it's a matter of discernment. Looking carefully, what really is important? What really is important? What is happening in your heart? And so, you know, I'm delighted when people step forward and say the path of practice, the path of generosity is a path I wish to walk. But it has to come from the inside. We don't try to coerce or garner or manipulate people into doing something like this so that we'll all feel better because people agree with us. So the ceremony is a ceremony of genuineness, a ceremony of integrity, a ceremony of, again, the heart's aspiration. And you'll see there are several parts of the ceremony. One part that we have in every single Buddhist ceremony is acknowledgement that we've been unskillful in our lives. And guess what? We all get to join in that part of the ceremony. Because everybody is unskillful. Sometimes we're unskillful in terms of intention, sometimes we're unskillful in terms of outcome, but, you know, one of the common denominators of all of us human beings is we make mistakes. So we have part of the ceremony, it just says, yeah, I am a human being who has made mistakes, and I will do my best to look at that, to acknowledge that, to set my intention to not keep doing the same old mistaken habits over and over and over again. We'll make new ones, but the old ones we have some little hope of cleaning up. Then there's a part of the ceremony where we take refuges and the 3 pure precepts and the 10 grave precepts. Now, in the Buddhist time, his basic ordination was come forth. Take refuge in the wisdom and teachings of the Dharma. Take refuge in the one bright mind and the exemplar of the Buddha. Take refuge in the community of practitioners that are walking the path. And people began taking refuge with the Buddha, and that tradition has continued in an unbroken line for 2,500 years. That the Buddha's disciples took refuge and said, I will walk this path of practice. I will take refuge in the compassion, in wisdom, in helping others. And then they had disciples who stepped forward. And they had disciples who stepped forward. And they had disciples who stepped forward. So the Buddhist Sangha is probably the longest-lived institution in the human realm. Continuous, unbroken, from this moment all the way back to the time of the Buddha. And of course, that's true for all of us. Just think about how many couples had to come together at exactly the right time over the last 300,000 years for us to be here right now. A whole lot of people. And they managed to do it exactly the right time. Perfect. For us to be here. Well, the Buddha Sangha is the same way. Exactly the right time, exactly the right time. People stepped forward and said, I want to devote my life to compassion, to helping others, to seeing the nature of mind for 2,500 years. And so part of this ceremony is stepping into that lineage, stepping into that tradition. It's not something that we made up, it's not something that just occurred to us, but we're following that thread. Now that thread is also a thread of practice. In some traditions, you know, people who become priests, they fulfill all the ritual parts of the priesthood, being present for, being a witness for births and deaths and marriages and those transition points in our lives. in some traditions, that role of a priest is kind of an intermediary between the divine and humans. But that's not the case in Buddhism at all. In Buddhism, it's we're all walking the path. And some people say, okay, I would like to walk this path 24/7 as best I am able. And one of the ways I can walk this path 24/7 is by devoting myself to supporting others. So that when I am teaching, what I'm saying in my own mouth, I have to live. So one of the burdens, the terrible tragedy of becoming a teacher, is you have to live up to your own words. Otherwise, you're lying. So we step into this path, a path of integrity, and we begin to practice the Dharma. We begin to unfold the wisdom and the kindness of our hearts. We begin to share the Dharma, and as we share the Dharma, we have to walk the path. And as we share the Dharma and walk the path, then we find that that is the fuel to continue. The Bodhisattva vow that we take in this tradition, in the Zen Buddhist tradition, is beings are numberless, I vow to free them. I vow to free them all. And from a relative, ordinary perspective, it's an impossible vow. I mean, there's 8 billion people or so, and they keep changing all the time. They keep coming in and going out. But from a deeper place, there is one bright jewel, one bright mind. And as we clarify that mind that sees the world, that mind that knows the world, that mind that actually creates the whole world is clarified and brightened. How we see the world from our vantage point is in the way how the world is. And so someone who has the ability and begins to cultivate and has the aspiration to see the world as a jewel, to see the world with an eye that can take in all of the exciting and interesting and disturbing things of the world and see the whole and see the bright, shining connection of the whole, and can look at people not as broken, can look at people as jewels, as bodhisattvas, as beings on the path, and we're all walking together. So part of this is a ritual from the outside, part of it is a practice and a growth from the inside, part of it is functioning, part of it is being receptive. It's a rich tradition. A rich tradition. So thank you all for witnessing. When we witness something, we make it real in a way. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, there's no tree and no forest and no sound. It's just sort of maybe a vibration at best. Maybe just molecules waving in the air. But as soon as someone hears it, as soon as someone sees it, as soon as someone recognizes it, suddenly it exists. And so in the same way, your presence here, everyone's presence here, watching this, participating, witnessing, in a way makes it real, makes it important, and is one way to honor the vows and the commitments that Shokan and Gensei are going to be making. Okay, maybe that's a good start. Anybody have any comments questions before I want to make sure this is clear. So it's got some esoteric elements, but they all fit together. Thank you.
Welcome to Turn and Face. The ceremony will be taking place around that table. And there will be an entrance, but everything will happen towards the front of the room. So you're welcome to turn and face. Program also raise your views.
There's a few little things to read, chant the program, but no big deal. There are many vows in this ceremony, and in some traditions they call it touching the earth. And some traditions we talk about it as being the practice of humility. And sometimes we talk about it as all things return to the One. What does the One return to? One manifestation of that is the earth itself. Please bring please kneel in Shoki.
This part of the ceremony is called an invocation. It's an invitation for all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, holy and wise beings to come and attend and bless this ceremony. And you can also invite anyone who wasn't able to attend for whatever reason, living or dead. So please do that as I chant in Japanese. Namuji po butsu, namuji po ho, namuji po so, namu hon shakamuni butsu, namu dai zu dai kyuku, namu kanze onbosa, namu dai jin fugen bosa, namu koso joyo daishi, Namu Tai So Joso Daishi, Namu Riki Daiso Shi, Po Satsu Namuji, Po Butsu Namuji, Po Ho Namuji, Po So Namu Hon Shi Shakamuni Butsu, Namu Dai Zu Dai Kyuku, Namu Kanze Ombosa, Namu Dai Jin Fugen Bosa, Namu Koso Joyo Daishi, Namu Tai So Josai Daishi, Namu Riki Daiso Shi, Bo Satsu Namuji, Po Butsu Namuji, Po Ho, Namuji, Po So, Namu Hon Shi Shakamuni Butsu, Namu Daizu Dai Kyuku, Namu Kanze On Bosa, Namu Daijin Fugen Bosa, Namu Koso Joyo Daishi, Namu Taiso Josai Daishi, Namu Riki Daiso Shi, Bodhisattva.
Well, after the bell, we can all join in the next invocation, which is in your program. Many of you who've been here know it, so 3 bells. No.
Yes, it is. I'll do it.
Okay, chosen would like call and response.
In the midst of the 3 treasures with all sentient beings, let us recite the names of Buddha. Being one with the past 7 Buddhas. Being one with the past 7 Buddhas. Being one one with the original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Being one with the original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Being one with great wisdom, Manjusri Bodhisattva. Being one with great wisdom, Manjusri Bodhisattva. Being one with great activity, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Being one with great activity, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Being one with great compassion, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Being one with great compassion, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Being one with great vow, Kashiti Garbha Bodhisattva. Being one with great vow, Kashiti Garbha Bodhisattva. Being one with great kindness, Maitreya Buddha. Being one with great kindness, Maitreya Buddha. Being one with the successive ancestors. Being one with the successive ancestors. Please do 3 vows to your parents. This is North.
Your parents are on one, I think.
Think of your parents' compassion to you and bow in gratitude to them. Think of your family's kindness. Think with compassion about the order they brought into your world and the effort it took to protect and sustain you. Now, as you step away from them, entering into your chosen path, sincerely wish them well and say goodbye. You will return their kindness by filling your heart and mind with respect as you enter the priesthood.
Okay. This monastery is dedicated to following the Buddha's vow, the vow to liberate all beings. And as indication of your willingness to undertake that vow, please go to the shrine room where we honor the founders of this monastery, Shoto Harada Roshi and Maizumi Roshi, and do 3 vows to the figures in that room which represent their mind. Kaisando. Just 3 total. 3 total. So anyone who can look in the room later, it has the central figure is Bodhidharma, and Bodhidharma is the iconic representation of bringing Zen Buddhism from India, the source of Shakyamuni Buddha's life, into China, and he is the founder of the Zen tradition. And then in that room also are calligraphies, sculptures, other things about other teachers that we've had in this tradition, especially Maizumi Roshi and Shoto Harada Roshi. So the wisdom of this teaching did not come from us. And as teachers, we're merely, at best, conduits which allow the wisdom of these great ancestors, the great giants that have come before us. So to honor the source, Shakyamuni Buddha and that whole lineage of teachers, one after the other for the last 2,500 years, please do 3 vows to us as that representative.
To be a priest in the Zen school, you must live by the precepts. To do so, you must first acknowledge any wrongdoing, intentional or unintentional. There's a confession verse that's been handed down from the time of the Buddha. With all sincerity, let us recite that verse, vowing to acknowledge wrongdoing and purify all wrongdoing. Complete acceptance of past misdeeds and the willingness to atone and make amends, and the vow to live by the precepts leads to liberation.
So in your book, in your program, there's the Gath of Atonement.
All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my By the power of confession and atonement, you have purified your body and mind from the intention to do harm. You must now embody the three treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. When these become the essence of your life, you will have repaid all of those who have supported you through your life. Countless debts to all beings. Let us take refuge in the three treasures together. This is call and response. Being one with the Buddha. Being one with the Buddha. May all beings embody the great way. May all beings embody the great way. Resolving to awaken to truth. Resolving to awaken to truth. Being one with the Dharma. Being one with the Dharma. May all beings penetrate the sutras. May all beings penetrate the sutras. Gaining wisdom deep as the ocean. Gaining wisdom deep as the ocean. Being one with the Sangha. Being one with the Sangha. May all beings support harmony everywhere. May all beings support harmony everywhere. Becoming free from every hindrance. Becoming free from every hindrance.
3 vows. So the practical manifestation of those refuges, the first iteration of that is the 3 pure precepts. Do you vow to avoid all evil?
I do.
I do.
Do you vow to help all beings?
I do.
I do.
Do you vow to cultivate all goodness?
I do.
1 vow, please. Now, in this tradition, we repeat the precepts over and over and over again so that we'll each have an affinity and a growing connection with them. And also, there are the precepts of non-harming, they're the precepts of safety, they're the precepts of respect. So these vows that we make now are the vows of respect for all life. And here is a way that we try to enact that respect.
Our deeds are our closest companions and what we leave behind when we die. We are the beneficiary of our deeds, and also others are the beneficiary. Our deeds are the ground on which we stand. We now take the 10 grave precepts. I vow not to kill, but to cherish all life.
I vow not to kill, but to cherish all life.
I vow not to steal, but to respect the belongings of others.
I vow not to steal, but to respect the belongings of others.
I vow not to misuse sexual energy, but to be respectful and honest in all actions.
I vow not to misuse sexual energy, but to be respectful and honest in all actions.
I vow not to lie, but to speak and embody the truth.
I vow not to lie, but to speak and embody the truth.
I vow not to misuse drugs or alcohol, but to keep the mind ground clear.
I vow not to misuse drugs or alcohol, but to keep the mind ground clear.
I vow not to gossip about others' faults, but to be understanding and sympathetic.
I vow not to gossip about others' faults, but to be understanding and sympathetic.
I vow not to praise myself by criticizing others.
I vow not to praise myself by criticizing others,
but to overcome my own shortcomings.
but to overcome my own shortcomings.
I vow not to withhold spiritual or material aid,
I vow not to withhold spiritual or material aid,
but to give freely when needed.
but to give freely when needed.
I vow not to unleash anger, but to seek and dissolve its source.
I vow not to unleash anger, but to seek and dissolve its source.
I vow not to speak ill of the three treasures, but to cherish and uphold them.
I vow not to speak ill of the three treasures, but to cherish and uphold them.
Will you maintain these well?
I will.
Will you maintain these well?
I will.
Will you really maintain these well?
I will.
Please.
You great being, realizing the drifting, wandering nature of reality, the unsatisfactory nature of worldly things, leave them behind and enter nirvana. To do so is rare and cannot be accomplished by the ordinary mind. All Buddhas, when finding the truth for the first time, diligently investigated. With the fresh heart of a beginner, they become determined to embody the truth. The resolve can no longer be broken. The merit of a beginner's mind is vast and completely fathomless. Even the Buddhas could not explain it completely. You are now taking the Buddha for your master and making the Bodhisattvas your companions. This portion of hair, this last portion of hair, is called the Shura. Only a Buddha can remove it. In the place of the Buddha, I will remove it. Will you allow me to do so?
I will.
This last portion of hair is called the Shura. Only a Buddha can remove it. In the place of the Buddha, I will remove it. Will you allow me to do so?
I will.
This last portion of hair is called the Shura. Only a Buddha can remove it. In the place of the Buddha, I will remove it. Will you allow me to do so?
I will. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows. Cutting off worldly attachments, living apart from history and possessions. Discover and embody the truth. You will help countless others. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, cutting off worldly attachments. Living apart from history and possessions. To discover and embody the truth. You will help countless others. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, cutting off worldly attachments. Living apart from history and possessions to discover and embody the truth. You will help countless beings. Please rise and do 3 vows. You can both do them now.
You, great being, realizing the drifting, wandering, unsatisfactory nature of reality. Leave this behind and enter nirvana, apart from worldly reality and living within worldly reality. To do so is rare and cannot be accomplished by the ordinary mind.
All Buddhas, when embodying the truth for the first time, ardently investigate it. With the fresh mind of a beginner, they become determined to realize the truth. The resolve can no longer be broken. The merit of a beginner's mind is vast and fathomless. Even if the Buddhas could explain it fully, it would never be enough. You are now taking the Buddha for your master and making all the Bodhisattvas your companion. You have to look her in the eye for this piece.
This last portion of hair is called the Shura. Only a Buddha can cut it off. In the place of the Buddha, I am going to cut it off. Will you allow me to do so?
I will.
This last portion of hair is called the Shura. Only a Buddha can cut it off. However, in the place of the Buddha, I am going to cut it off. Will you allow me to do so?
I will.
This last portion of hair is called the shura. Only a Buddha can cut it off. In the place of the Buddha, I am going to cut it off. If you allow me to do so, will you allow me to do so?
I will.
You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, cutting off worldly attachments, living apart from history and possessions, to discover and embody the truth. You will help countless beings. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, cutting off worldly attachments, living apart from history and possessions. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, helping many beings. You are changing your form to fulfill your vows, cutting off worldly attachments, living apart from history and possessions. In order to discover and embody the truth, you will help many beings. 3 vows. Now, as an outward symbol of these intentions, these vows, we have several things that we offer. So I think that we'll...
In the time of the Buddha, when people left home to join the Buddha's group of monks and nuns, they left behind all their worldly possessions, and then they were given a robe and a bowl. And there were a few other things, a pouch for medicine or for sewing tears in their robes. But really they relied completely on the generosity of everyone around them in the villages that they went through where they taught the Dharma. And so, they also had a cloth for bowing, for putting down on the ground to sit on, because at that time it was very dusty and dirty in India. So you will see us now giving the basic supplies of someone who is ordained. And the first is the bowing cloth. In this tradition called a zagu. Please do one bow. They have practiced this exactly 2 times. Turn it around. Yeah.
Kneel and Choki, leave it down.
In our practice life together, we do a lot of vows. Our vows are vows of humility. Our vows are vows of honoring our potential for greater wisdom and compassion. And as we lift up our hands, we're asking that that be lifted up into our life, become manifest in our life, our full capacity for clarity, wisdom, compassion, and kindness. The next is the robe.
You receive it. He will help you.
So our clothing as ordained people reflects the history of Buddhism. They will be getting the okesa, and the okesa is patterned after the robe that the Buddha and his followers wore. And then under that is this kuromo. The kuromo is patterned after Tang Dynasty Chinese robes, because Buddhism went from India to China and then adapted, as it always has, to different cultures. And of course it was colder in China, so the simple robe that you'll see in a minute wasn't enough to wear. So they wore their traditional robes underneath.
Something.
Yeah. This has to go,
Something is wrong.
it has to go inside. Yeah, there. So we have the kuromo, the Chinese style robe. And then under that we have kimono, which is from Japan, traditionally worn in Japan. And then under that we have American underwear.
So, can you know that has to be tied inside?
It goes across
Like,
first,
yeah.
inside. Yeah.
Also, it's no, it goes in. Yeah. And it's a little bit, just adjust, it's a little bit cattywampus. There you go. So they've obviously never worn these before, but even the people who wear them all the time are a little mystified.
There's all these different straps.
It may be missing one, it looks like.
One of the ties is missing.
Yeah.
We put these robes on ourselves all the time, but it's hard to put them on somebody else.
There we go.
Oh.
In Soto Zen, there's an entire practice of robes. It keeps you mindful. It's the constant mindfulness bell. There we go. And the shukin?
No. Let's put those directly.
So this belt is actually Japanese style. It's woven of silk. It's a braided cord, which is an ancient art in Japan. Kind of like a magic act.
So these robes are truly a mindfulness practice. You have to really pay attention with them, especially. And you can't, your arms can't flop down either, because you keep the sleeves, and you're standing off the floor. Okay? Almost.
One bow.
Okay.
Next, the raksu, which they made and was then presented to them when they first took the precepts and first joined the Buddhist path. And at that time, they received a Buddhist name, and Gensei's name. His name is Gensei, which means
Means reveal sacred.
reveal the sacred. And Shokan's name means
True nature, look into.
to look deeply into
Please
true
do one
nature.
vow. Back in Choki, and then give us your Roxas back.
So the Raksu is a small representation of the larger original Buddha's robe, and is worn on more informal occasions. But now they'll be getting the large version of the Buddha's robe.
And in your program is, I think, the chant for this robe. So if everyone would please chant the robe of liberation.
How great the robe of liberation, how formless fields of manifestation, wrapping ourselves in Buddha's teaching, we pray all living beings. How great the robe of formless field of benefaction, wrapping ourselves in Buddha's teaching, we pray all living beings. How great the formless
Please.
Perfect, that's good.
It's good enough. Please do 3 vows. Please do 3 vows with your robes.
So they spent many hours sewing these robes, these okesas, in the style, the original style of the Buddha. And the story of this okesa is that King Bimbisara had converted to Buddhism, And he was riding on his elephant and saw in the distance some monks approaching, and he thought it was the Buddha and his followers. And so he got down off of his elephant. The only person a king would bow to would be a Buddha. Got down off of his elephant to bow, and then as they came closer, he realized it wasn't the Buddha. So then he asked the Buddha to please design a robe that would be distinctive, so he would know when the Buddha was approaching and could venerate the Buddha. So Ananda, the Buddha's cousin and chief disciple and assistant for life, were walking, and the Buddha said, we need to design a robe that's distinctive. And they were walking by a rice field. And the Buddha said, why don't we use that design and take discarded cloth, so cloth that is not useful to worldly people anymore, not beautiful cloth. On purpose, the color is dull, so as not to arouse jealousy about having fine garments. And those pieces will be sewn together, those discarded pieces will be washed and disinfected. Traditionally, that's done in turmeric. So that's why these robes are yellow, or why the Theravadan robes are yellow or orange, because of the turmeric that was used to disinfect them. Because they had come from people who were sick, or corpses, or traditionally it says trampled by oxen, or chewed on by cows, and so on. Any discarded cloth.
Not this material.
Not this material. And then it was pieced together in the form of a rice field, which is a beautiful image, because a rice field in India, in warm countries, is constantly being turned over. So it can be plowed, and then planted, and then growing, and then harvested. So in one field you may have different patches that are being turned over in that way, just as our spiritual life is being planted and grows, and then harvested and enjoyed, and then often we have to give up what we've enjoyed and start again. And also a rice field supports many, many forms of life. So the microorganisms in the soil, the earthworms, the butterflies and insects, the rice plants themselves, ducks that come in and eat the snails, and then humans that eat the rice. So may our lives support the lives of countless beings. This is the other possession that the Buddha's disciples went forth with, which was an alms bowl. So they only received donated food. And of course, in a way, all of our food is donated. All of our food represents the life energy of countless, countless living beings flowing towards us into our bowl. Now we have a set of vows called the life vows.
So there are three sets of vows that we do. There's life vows, there are secret vows, and then there are vows to the community. So Chosen will offer you the life vows at this point.
Please repeat after me. I vow to walk the path of the Buddha,
I vow to walk the path of the Buddha,
living an ethical life and becoming enlightened,
living an ethical life and becoming enlightened,
never turning back no matter how long it takes.
never turning back no matter how long it takes.
I vow to study the Dharma,
I vow to study the Dharma,
working to understand the true nature of everything and everyone I encounter.
working to understand the true nature of everything and everyone I encounter.
I vow to help the Sangha,
I vow to help the Sangha,
practicing generosity with all of my resources.
practicing generosity with all of my resources.
I vow to undertake a life of simplicity, living with few personal possessions.
I vow to undertake a life of simplicity, living with few personal possessions.
I vow to undertake a life of service,
I vow to undertake a life of service,
nurturing people's deepest life aspirations.
nurturing people's deepest life aspirations.
I vow to undertake a life of stability,
I vow to undertake a life of stability,
honoring my commitments by being patient,
honoring my commitments
Honoring my commitments to be patient.
by being patient, tolerant, honoring my commitments by being patient,
honoring my commitments by being patient,
tolerant and steadfast
tolerant and steadfast
in practice and relationships.
in practice and relationships.
I vow to be available to offer spiritual support
I vow to be available to offer spiritual support
to people in life transitions.
To
to people in life transitions.
Please bow. Next are what we call the secret vows, the vows of the heart, the vows which are before words, the vows which often cannot even be put into words. And we invite everyone in the room, as well as Gensei and Shokan, to reflect for a moment on the vows of the heart and to affirm whatever those are. May these guide you and sustain you. The last set of vows are the vows to the community. So please repeat after me. For 5 years, I vow to follow my teacher's direct guidance.
For 5 years, I vow to follow my teacher's direct guidance.
For 5 years, I vow to live at and support Great Vow Zen Monastery.
For 5 years, I vow to live at and support Great Vow Zen Monastery.
For 5 years, I vow to serve the Zen community of Oregon, Heart of Wisdom, and local sanghas.
For 5 years, I vow to serve
Great Vow Zen
Monastery, Heart of Wisdom Zen Temple, and
Heart of Wisdom, Zen Temple, Zen community of Oregon, and local sanghas.
Zen Community of Oregon and local sanghas.
Okay, so do 3 vows and for the whole thing.
Truly, we take these very seriously, but we also can be amused at our human foibles. The traditional teaching is that an enlightenment, awakening, is composed of wisdom, clarity of mind, and compassion, warmth of heart. But I like to add that enlightenment also includes a sense of humor about the human predicament and our own feeble attempts at living this life well.
Divine comedy.
Because all existence is marked by dukkha, by suffering, by unsatisfactoriness, we begin our practice for the sake of our own suffering. Because all existence shares the same Buddha heart, we broaden our practice for the sake of others. because the Dharma is unfathomably deep. We undertake endless practice to help all beings find liberation. If you want to train in the precepts in this threefold manner, you should embody the 4 Bodhisattva vows. Let us recite them together.
For great Bodhisattva vows.
Beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Now the universe rejoices. The earth trembles and the flowers fall. The Bodhisattvas of other worlds ask their Buddha what this means. And the Buddha replies that new disciples have been given the pure great precepts of the Bodhisattvas and have taken the 4-fold vow to liberate all beings. They have been awakened to truth by the teachers who received it before, through the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the Buddha of this world. These new priests will become enlightened in the future through this merit. Therefore, the universe rejoices. The universal Bodhisattvas, upon hearing this explanation, bow, saying, if this is so, they have the same mind and heart as we do.
So now we do a little ceremony called Juhai. Who is leading that? Myo. And please rise. And Myo, you will lead Shokan and take up your zagu. Fold it, put it over your left arm. And Myo, you will lead them in a kind of walking bow. So they'll be bowing to each person in the room, and as they pass in front of you, if you like to support them, please bow in return.
That folds.
And just kneel one more time. No, you don't, just kneel, it's okay, do it formally at this point.
Just pull up
Just
your
kneel. Yeah, usually don't kneel on
bookcases
the
so you don't
bookcases.
kneel on
After receiving these precepts and making these vows, you obtain their unmistakable merit. Your resolve to embody the Buddha Dharma is the most profound precept. To attain the mind of the Buddha and the pure heart of the Dharma is to keep the entire world, to offer the entire world the precepts. Is this not so? Please ponder, to whom can you offer merit? Please ponder, to whom can receive it? Who can receive it? The offering, the donor, and those who receive all gifts completely empty. There is nothing to be desired. Even so, let us together with all beings, with this whole community, offer our highest merit to the deepest truth. I pray that you will never lose faith in your vows. I pray you'll never lose faith in your vows, but will continue to evolve and deepen them. Let's all join together in the universal dedication. I think it's in your program.
Can please rise and we'll do 3 vows together.
Any kind of vow you'd like to do is adequate. One bow to the camera and everybody and the Sangha who's joining us virtually. An appreciation for their virtual presence. Now we do the recession.